Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you may be in the world. Welcome to today's conversation on Gift of Healing TV. I'm Sarah Jane. I'm usually joined by two co-hosts. We know David, bless him, has gone on a retreat. He's not been particularly well. We're not sure what's happened to Scott. Hopefully Scott will join us, but I am delighted. I have my guest with me, Heather Prince. Heather, thank you so much for joining us for the program, or me.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very honoured to be here.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. Now, the topic of our conversation, we always allow our guests to choose the topic of conversation. And Heather has chosen self-empowerment. So, Heather, just share a little bit about yourself and why self-empowerment.
I think as women, we tend to give our power away. And I think of the image of a whole melon, let's say. And what happens is, in my perspective, is we ask other people their opinion. What should I do about whatever it is? What should I say? Oh, I don't know what to wear. What should I wear? And I am a holistic relationship coach, and I've spoken with many, many women who I've worked with, and they've said, oh, my first marriage didn't work out, so I got remarried, and that man said I shouldn't cut my hair and I should only wear black. And even though my grown-up children are away studying, I shouldn't go and visit them in term times. And all of these things where they were actually handing over a big lump of that melon, a big wedge of that melon over to someone else. Hi.
Hey there.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Scott.
Nice to meet you, Scott.
And
It's a pleasure to meet you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, Scott, my co-host for this evening. Heather, please carry on.
I was just saying, it's like a big chunk or wedge of that melon has been handed over to someone else who then has taken away the wholeness of the power. And I think that it's very beneficial to claim back power and to make up your own mind of how you wish to wear your hair or what colors you wish to wear, because they project who you are and your personality. And if you've got children and they're from a previous relationship and that person tells you what you can and can't do, that's purely their opinion, but you must do what feels right for you.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't. Sort of, women give their power away, but you know what? I've certainly met men who have given their power away. I worked with a guy many years ago, and he was self-harming because of the way he was being treated by the woman in his own home, and it's awful to witness that for anybody. It really is, and I think. So yeah, I understand that sort of, yes, as women, we may work with women, but I've witnessed it firsthand. I really have. I've worked with men who were abused as children. And it happens to everybody. And I know we're very much in this thing about all women taking their power back. Yes, we have to. But do you know what? I think the men are struggling too.
Even more so on many different levels. And I talked with David McLeod with this especially, and that is that it took me till I was 60 years old before I understood that I actually had feelings, and because I was always in my head. And when my wife would say, "Oh, I want this," yeah, okay, she'd say, how do you feel about this? I'd be like, I really don't feel anything about it. But if she had asked that same question and said, "What do you think about this?" I could have spoken to her for 2 hours on the subject, because I related everything through thought instead of in practicality. And so therefore, you talk about taking your power back. I didn't realize till my wife was gone how much I didn't know about me because I allowed her to set everything, set parameters for the house, for where things go, for how things should be, because I thought that's what the role was. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I thought that that's how it was supposed to be. And I found out I really didn't like much of that. My wife, any flat surface was covered and everything. I like very pristine. I like very, very, just angles and room and space, and it I feel differently. But I didn't know I had those feelings because they didn't come to the fore, and I didn't feel through
Yeah.
them.
I get that. I spoke to a man who wanted his own apartment, and he'd been married, and he left the family home, and he thought, I don't know what I like. I don't know how to make my flat, my apartment the way that would reflect me, and whether it's minimalistic or whether it's got antiques or whatever, he didn't know. And
Yeah.
I think that there comes a time in life where you've got the space, or something happens like the end of a relationship, or unfortunately widowed, where you become your own person and think, well, what do I like? I think we tend to fit in with someone who says, oh, will you come to this concert? I really like country and western. And you think, well, it's not really that for me, but I'll go with you. And then you lose yourself of, well, what actually do I want? And I think that's, just, when someone becomes solo, they then can think, who am I? What do I want? And yes, how do I feel? And what decisions do I need to make? Which I find with a lot of people, they find that a huge challenge.
No,
Yeah, it really, and it's a huge segment of what a lot of women are doing it with modalities for men to bring out who the men are, because they've never had the chance. I was married when I was 19. I had 3 kids when I was 25. So my role very, very early on was very set. And that's the role I took on. And that's how I kind of went through life in that a good soldier and marching along. And, every once in a while I'd say, hey, what about this? No, no. All right. All right. So yes, it is pretty amazing. You did want to start. I believe David's not coming today.
oh yeah, no, sorry, we have started, and David, David is, bless him, he hasn't been particularly well, and he's actually taken himself off on a retreat. So sort of we haven't got David today. So you're the only gentleman, but I am so pleased to have you, because I do think it's great to have that rounded sort of perception of all these things. It really is. I've actually got a question for all three of us, but I obviously know my answer. And that is, we've all gone through this wake up, if you like. It's, whoa, this is my life and it's for me to lead. But is there something that, not the wake up call itself, which is what I call it, not what happened that helped you to realize, but was there something that happened before that wake up call? It was like a light bulb moment of, oh goodness, yes, that makes so much sense now. And the example I will give is what happened to me. And I remember standing in the kitchen after I'd finished, broken up my marriage. It had to come to an end, far as I was concerned. I'd broken it up, and I was standing in the kitchen, and that light bulb moment was, why am I worried? Because I was a people pleaser. Why am I worrying about what other people think about me when they're not? And that was a huge light bulb moment for a people pleaser. And it was just like, why am I worrying? They have got so much on their plates. They are not thinking, and if they are, then it's none of my business what they're thinking about me anyway. It doesn't matter. So have you got a light bulb moment that you could share with folks, and that light bulb moment is what can help us to really start taking our power back. So Heather, I will come to you.
Yes, I totally relate to what you've said. And I think at the time when my marriage ended and I'd met him at 15 and I'd been with him for 34 years, I'd gone from being a child to being a mature woman. And I think my wake up moment was I didn't need to be told. I wasn't a child. I could make up my own mind. Excuse me.
That's okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely going. It's definitely going around. It's definitely going around.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab a drink behind me.
Go ahead. Then I'll pick up if you would.
Yeah.
So, much the same. I met my wife when I was 18. We were married at 19. I had 3 children by the time I was 25. So, it was survival. It was being the dad. Anyone ever needed me, I put the cape on and I flew to whoever needed me. And anything that I wanted to do was second, third, fourth, seventh. I always said that it was the kids, my wife, the dog, the cat, and then maybe me. But I had learned that, by the way, from my mother. I found out much later on that she taught me because my father went to work and he came home. When he came home from work, he would come in the door, he'd sit in his seat, he'd take off his boots, he'd turn around, and the 4 of us children and my mom would be there with dinner on the table waiting for him to eat. Very old fashioned, of course. But my mother, if something needed painting, she did it. She did the outside. She took care of the kids. She did the laundry every day. She did it. She did absolutely everything. But that was how she showed love. That's how she showed family. That's how she showed giving. And so I fell into that rather easily. And for my wife, who was ill on and off for 20 years, I was the caregiver. So I fell into even more so. So my world just kind of keeps going like this. After she passed, I had a blank slate and I was scared to death. Absolutely scared to death. I always said that if I was single, it would scare the hell out of me because I didn't know who I was. So how could I possibly have a relationship with anybody if I didn't know who I was? And that's where I went to therapy every week for 5 years, learning all these different depths of things. And I had a wonderful counselor, and she never let me get away with anything because she'd say, "Do you remember about 3 years ago you said this?" No notes, no anything. She would tell me exactly what was going on. She would never let me get away with anything. There's some days you go to counseling and you go, "Oh Lord, I don't know what I want to say. I really don't want to go, but I'm going to do this." And I'd get there. And those were perhaps the best because there was no expectations. But it was, my kids had grown. I had grandchildren. My wife was not there to take up 18 hours of my day in order to take care of her, especially in the latter stages of life. And I went, oh my God, I can do virtually anything. Excited, scary. So it was like I was an 18-year-old with money and no, and all the responsibility without having any of the questions, right? So for my 60th birthday, I went on an 18-day European vacation with my best friend. We were going to do this after college and never got there, but we did it when I was turning 60. We had 8 countries, 2,500 miles. We drove all across Europe, never know where we were going to be one day to the next because we could afford it, because we could do it. We didn't have to stay in youth hostels, thank goodness. And be able to do that. And that just opened me up to the bounty and the possibilities that I was able to. So I tell people now, I am living my best 18-year-old life. I always wanted to be a writer. I've been in 4 books. I have 3 more coming this year. I always wanted to travel because when I was a kid, my dad was in the Air Force, and every year we were in a different spot. So I've traveled all over the world. I now teach. When I was going to school, college, I never finished, but I was going to be a teacher, and now I teach courses. So I am living my best 18-year-old life. And in that way, I don't feel as I did before that there was something missing, that there something I needed to do. There was something that there was always, there was that wanting and it's not there anymore because I am at peace. I found who I am. I realized who I am. Shocking as that is. For me, there was not a single light bulb moment, but a number of many light bulb moments as I went journeying along the path of, oh, I could do this. Oh, I really can do that, can't I? All those parameters, those boundaries, those everything I was raised to do and believe and feel, and this is the way things are. All of a sudden, they just kind of crumbled, and now I have those parameters, but they're so much wider.
Yeah.
When Sara asked me to come on here, it was, do I have anything to offer? Do I really? And she said, well, no, I think you'd be rather good at it. And I said, why, thank you. And that belief that I can add to the dialogue that we discuss a couple times a month is empowering, and that the ability to use your voice and know that people can hear it.
Yeah.
The
ability to share our story.
Sorry, Sarah, but Scott, you're an inspiration, especially to men who, like you, have had to care for a long time and then have the freedom and haven't got a clue what to do with it.
Yeah, it's not. There are many nights, of course, that the monsters come out of the closet 3 o'clock in the morning, as they always do, and they fill the room and they tell you everything you're doing wrong. And now, when at 3 o'clock in the morning when I wake up, I don't have them anymore. My monsters used to fill the room. They used to be, I would be cowering under the covers, and now my monsters fit in my hand. Those same fears, they're very, very small. They come up every once in a while and say, hey, you shouldn't be doing that. What can happen? It's like, yep, I do. Thank you. And I appreciate it. And it really, when you take away all of the anxiety, all those shoulds off the shoulders, right? All those have tos. When you take those all away, all of a sudden you have this, oh, okay, nice. And what I found is it allows me to be a much more compassionate, heart-centered, understanding person, less rigid in my perceptions and my judgments in all aspects of my life. And it has just freed me to be and to teach and to heal and to other people and to really care about what I do.
Yeah. Brilliant. And for all of us, isn't it? It's the learned behaviors from the experiences we've had, but what we've witnessed within the family. So what you were talking about your sort of mother, she was the doer in the house, whereas your father, his role was to go out and earn the money and come back, and your mother's role was to look after the kids, the house, and obviously have some of that money so she could spend it to feed you all, for him to pay the bills. It's a learned behavior. It's what you witnessed from both your mother and your father, that's how you were. And that's how I think about my second husband, because I have been married twice. Now I can look back and think, okay, now I understand why he was the way he was. because of what he witnessed between his own mother and father. Wasn't like it before we got married, but as soon as we got married, things changed. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm sure for yourself, Heather, there were things that you witnessed in your own upbringing.
It was a different era.
Yeah, it was. Absolutely.
A different era where the woman was the stay-at-home housewife and the man was the breadwinner. And the world has changed and our culture is changing. And I see with my own married children that the boys are changing nappies. The boys have got paternal leave. The boys are doing the housework, sharing the ironing. It wasn't like that in our parents' era, or indeed my own. And if my mum came round to me, she's passed on now, and she'd say, have you made him dinner? And I'd go, no, I haven't tonight. And she'd be horrified. Why haven't I got dinner ready? Why isn't it? Because he could do it himself if he wanted to. But it wasn't her understanding, because it wasn't like that in that era. So yes, we are a product of our childhood, but taking back our empowerment, that's someone else's idea, someone else's belief. Is it our belief? And I discovered, no, it wasn't my belief to kowtow and be the unpaid housekeeper. I wanted more than that. I wanted a career. I wanted to do healing. I wanted to do what I do now. And my ex-husband wasn't very happy about it and didn't like all the people that came to my meditation classes. And all of a sudden I was in the spotlight. Didn't like that at all. And that caused the mismatch.
Oh, no. I remember saying to my second husband, I felt like a slave in my own home.
Yeah.
I worked full time, so did he. He might get in first, but he'd be watching the television when I got in, and I'd be the one having to get the tea. I'm so pleased we didn't have kids, because that would have really done sort of. But it's that point of, wow, I can take my power back. In fact, I'm allowed to have some power. I think with the people pleasers in the world, we just don't feel that we're worthy of anything, and not worthy of anybody listening to us. Who's going to listen to us, for crying out loud? What have we got to offer? Now you can't shut me up. But isn't that the joy? This is why I love doing things like this, because we all come from, we've got some similar experiences, and the experiences can be similar, but it's how they made us feel, how those experiences affected us. And I think it's not so much, in some respects, the story, so much as the feelings that our experience generate within us. And I think so many of us experience those feelings of, I don't know who I am, feeling unworthy, unwanted, unloved, not good enough, etc. How many negative things are there you can say about yourself? I've felt every single one of them. And who hasn't? So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, but it's all right, I've been there, done it, got the t-shirt, written the book, because I've shared that as well. Share it everywhere. I don't hide from my story. My story is the gift for me that I gave myself, and the wake up was the empowerment to not hold on to that story, but be able to grow beyond everybody else's limitations that I had allowed them to put on me. And that's the thing, is we've sadly, without realizing it, given people permission to put those limitations on us.
Yeah, I think it's about boundaries. I really do. And I think with most of my clients that I've worked with over the years, there's been no boundaries, no clear boundaries. Once we start to identify boundaries, everything changes. And the people around them don't always like it. because the game has changed, but it's very important.
Yeah.
What I've found is that when you're starting the inner sacred feminine and masculine, and it's always said that the feminine is brought as unconditional love, is like water flowing, and that the inner masculine is the banks that form and hold the water so that there's direction. And what I find with a lot of clients that I work with is that whether they're empaths or whether they're just open, just really really open, is that they don't know. It's just so open and vast that they take everything on and they take everything in, and they think it's their job to take everybody's pain in. And in the same way as people pleasers and ex people pleaser, by the way, um, that instead of taking it on, to be able to set those boundaries. Now, some people say, "Oh, I don't like boundaries." Well, I said, okay, let's talk about speed bumps then. All right. So people when they come toward you and all these feelings are coming toward you, you hear that bump, right? To slow them down, number one, but it also indicates to you, hey, they're coming. It gives you the moment to breathe and say, do I want to accept this? And that's a for me, it's a tool. That one breath, right? When you go to react to somebody or anything else, that one breath. I never used to take the breath. I used to be able to, when you said something, I could come right back and, just tumble over one another. And I realized I actually wasn't listening. I was calculating my response. And now I step back and listen, take a breath, and sometimes not even say anything. and in that respect, I found my voice also in realizing I do not have to fill the space. The second
Yeah.
that other part of finding your voice is knowing when to use it.
Yes, I think a lot of people chat because they don't like not having the space with a sound in it. I recognize that with a lot of people. And I think, why waste energy unless you've got something specific to say?
Wonderful.
Mm.
And it's so important to be able to find our voice, to use it. But yes, it is about that. As you said, it's about listening. And there's that saying, isn't there? It's listening to understand rather than listening to reply.
Yep.
And that's why I love doing these programs, because I remember one of the very first programs with Enolia when we very first started this, and I can't remember what the topic was, and she'd asked me to share my thoughts. I shared my thoughts, and I sat and listened to what she said, and I thought, you've said exactly what I've said, but if you haven't listened to this properly, you're going to think we've disagreed. Because it was that 6 and 9, or that I've come from the inside, you've come from the outside, or vice versa. We'd come at it from completely different directions. But actually, we'd said the same thing. We hadn't disagreed with each other at all. And I don't have a problem if within these conversations you say, I don't know whether I agree with that. Because it's brilliant, because it's our experiences. And everything each one of us can share. Somebody may be listening and think, I'm not sure I agree with what she's saying. But actually, no, that makes sense to me. That's what's important. Conversations can change lives if we listen. Or wasn't there another saying? When we speak, we're only repeating what we know. When we listen, we may learn something.
That's a good one.
So we're all about the self-empowerment. And we can do that. For me, we can do that by honoring what feels right for us. Feel it, don't think it. Help your mind to connect with your heart. And listen to your heart. If something feels, doesn't have to be wrong, but not right for you, be able to say no. What I would say about hearing a no is sometimes the no can be a much bigger gift than a yes.
To the person, yes.
Oh, absolutely. But to both. So, any thoughts, folks?
So I was going to just say, now my girls are grown, and they would come, Mom, Dad, and I would start reaching in my hand in my pocket for my wallet when they, Dad, and okay, what do they need now? So as they get older, I realized that the numbers just got bigger, right? The asks got bigger, and after my wife passed, I started saying no, and they'd look at me, and I'm like, no, you can handle it yourself, because my wife would always, I would sit and talk with her, and she'd always want to help, and okay, so I did. And when I started saying no, they got very, very upset. And now my daughters have their own house. They were struggling, and now they have their own house. It allowed them to not say, well, Dad's always got my back, I can always get money. And it stopped when, instead of borrowing money from me, I signed for a loan from my daughter for the bank, so she had to pay the bank, because I knew she wasn't going to pay me back.
Very wise.
So it was accountability. It was the last time she asked again, but it allowed her to move on, to make different decisions about her life, her family. And those no's really empowered them to stand on their own 2 feet.
But they empower us too.
Absolutely.
Because when we say no, we are saying, actually, if I'd said yes, I'm holding you back and I'm holding me back. When I say no to you and yes to me, I'm empowering us both. But the other person, that's their choice whether they choose to be empowered or not.
Yeah.
But you're giving them the opportunity for self-empowerment. And you're giving yourself that opportunity for self-empowerment.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Sarah Jane, and I think it's a life lesson as well. And it starts with children, because if the children always get whatever they want, when they're an adult and they find a partner and that partner says no, they're going to pout, they're going to sulk, and they're going to become the little girl again, or the little boy that doesn't get their way. So I think that when, as parents or godparents, whoever's listening, and a child asks for something or does something that's unacceptable, and they have to go without something that they wanted, it's not the end of the world. It's teaching them that actually it's not always a yes. And when they're older and they do have a partner that also says, well, actually, darling, no, we can't go on that holiday. We don't have the money. No, we can't go out for dinner where it's going to be $100 or £100 or whatever, because it's not in our affordability. They're not going to sulk and then become all hoity-toity. Oh, I didn't get my way. And I think children need to learn that, so that when they're adults, actually they're more understanding. Do you agree?
Yeah.
It's the boundaries.
Yeah.
And I what I found is that in my experience is that children want to know where the boundaries are. They want to know. They may want to jump over the fence into the other yard, but
Yeah.
they want to know where those boundaries are. And because they want to be able to challenge it. Because if you don't put them up, there's no challenge. There's no understanding of that everything is not just free. You know, the limitations. I was reading a book and they said when you go on holiday, and you go into like a museum and you have the shop afterwards, they look at things and they don't take anything and just what they want, right? And they don't take price into consideration or anything else. So they said, give them $10 or 20, whatever money you're going to give them, and say you can spend that much. Now, my children never spent longer looking for things because they were looking at price. Can I afford this? Do I really want it? And it allowed them to make decisions, real-time decisions, rather than, here's this whole store, pick something out. Okay, doesn't really work that way. Here's the money, stay within that. And it really works well.
Yeah. I like that. I do that on a Saturday. If I'd go out with one of the grandkids or two and I give them £5 each, you can have whatever you like. That's your money. When it's gone, it's gone. And if they want to buy sweets, great. If they want to buy a toy, great. It's up to them. And I think it's very important for them to learn. I like that, Scott.
Yes. It's worked pretty well.
Yeah. As children, sort of, if I wanted horse riding lessons, I had to save up for it out of what little pocket money I got. But my parents, when I was 12, bought an old Victorian house and turned it into a small hotel. And at that point, pocket money ceased. If we did not work and do things within the hotel, we got no money. That was from the age of 12. When I then started, and I went out and did paper rounds once I was 13. Yeah, exactly. If I didn't go and earn the money, I didn't get any. It was that simple. And then when I did start a full-time job, and when I actually left it, that particular one, to move on to the next one, which meant I moved out of the house as well, I was on £48 a week, of which the tax man took £12. My mother took £12 because it was a quarter of my weekly wage had to go in to the coffers to pay for my food, etc., etc. I was earning now, so I had to pay towards. She didn't want to do that, but it was a means of making me think. Every time I borrowed my mother's car, all my friends, if they borrowed their parents' car, they just had to put some fuel in. My parents charged me by the mile to take into account wear and tear.
Very wise parents.
Yeah. So, it was a matter of life is going to cost you. I was meant to save £12 a week, and I was meant to have £12 to spend. The saving never happened. but the money had to go to them. The tax man took their share, and if I then obviously sort of borrowed mum's car, which I did, I went out. I did not drink and drive. I never drank and drive, which is probably why I never got used to alcohol, because I was usually driving all my friends around. And it was costing me, I don't know what it was at the time, but it was just like, you're having to pay how much? But the fuel won't cost that. Yes, but they've got the bills of the car, the insurance for having an 18-year-old drive that car.
Absolutely. I think that's empowering in itself, isn't it? For you to know that now you've got that behind you, that you've had that experience. It wasn't all just handed to you on a plate.
No, it wasn't. I still had my really rough times to do with the childhood traumas and the fact I still didn't feel loved in the family, wanted in the family, and all the rest of it. And of course, I was the eldest. So it happened to me first. So, of course, that almost felt like it was a dig at me. I don't know, but it was sadly. But you know what? I had to do it. It was all part and parcel. It was the only way to learn.
I wonder if it's because of when we grew up, the three of us, that those are very, very similar shared experiences. I started working when I was 12. I had a paper route, and the first $10 went to my mother, and she used that money to pay for lunches for my two sisters and my brother. Now, I then took to buying my own clothes and paying for my own things on, with doing the paper route and then working from the time I was 16 on. My younger brother was 7 years younger. And as adults, we talked about this, and it was almost as if we grew up in two different households. He didn't get his first job till he was 22. He lived in the house till he was 28. I I worked full time, started college, was working full time, going to college full time, and was out of the house when I was 19 years old. And he was shocked that I gave my parents money. It's like, no, you were part of the family, and that's how you gave back. My dad was working, my mom was home, and it enabled them to do other things. So that was just how I think it's that time period. It's that understanding of, I never felt like we went without.
Mm.
We never had too much, but we always had enough.
Yeah.
And I think today, and I look at today to my grandchildren, and for Christmas, they get a brand new bat, $100 bat every year for Christmas. I'm looking at it. I played baseball, but we had one bat, and my friend had a ball, and my other friend had a glove, and so we get together and we share everything. And when the bat broke, we took two screws and we put it together and we taped it up, and then we used it some more. So it was not that we didn't have. It's just that I think there was more gratitude for things that we did have, because everything wasn't replaceable. Everything wasn't just easily taken. And we've lost a little bit of that, I think. Work ethic is different now. The ability for families has changed. The whole dynamic is seemingly, here in the U.S. anyway, especially, it's changed. It used to be multifamily and cousins are always close, and now everybody is they're very close on their phone, and they can talk on their phone or see things on their phone, but it's kind of spread families further apart.
Mm.
So it was a very different time, and I know that our perspective, as we're talking, is a certain bent to it because of the time. But I think it's those base values that are forever. There's a simple base values that are forever. Especially when we're talking about love, when we're talking about family, we're talking about safety, we're talking about all those things that everybody around the world wants. That it's being grateful for what we do indeed have. The ability to do the show.
Yeah, I mean, gratitude is important, but coming back to the subject of empowerment, I think that women can lead by example for the young women to see that they can be empowered without becoming too masculine of the energy, and gaining a balance. And for the boys, for their dads to lead by example, again, to have the feminine empathy, but also to get the balance of the masculine energy, so that nobody feels that anybody is higher up on the scale, that we've all got a part to play, and we can all take our empowerment in a nice way without manipulation or control.
I agree. I just want you spark something in me, and that is when I talk to men about becoming more masculine, and I tell them the way to become a better man is to find your inner feminine. And of course, they look at me cross-eyed, like I have two heads, because, well, what do you mean by that? How can that possibly be? But that's how I found my way from here to here, is being able to recognize, understand, accept all those feelings, that part of me that I didn't know was within me, to be able to empower me to be able to be the man I am today. And I'm proud to be who I am now. Before I lived through fear. It's what I was taught. You're afraid you're not going to have enough money. You're afraid you're not going to have enough food. You're afraid you're not going to have enough. And I live in abundance now.
Yeah. And Scott, do you think that when mothers say to little boys, big boys don't cry, that it's the wrong message, that it's okay to show emotions, it's okay to feel from the heart space and share? You know, when you said that, I felt whatever it was that person felt.
Yes, and it's funny. The younger men express themselves generally much more so through feelings than they ever did. And we were taught, oh, you don't cry, you don't, you can't express your anger. As a boy, you express anger and you get into fights and you have physical, have fist fights or whatever, and then you go off with your best friend and you go play after you fight. It's just that, and that's no anger, no, don't ever be angry. You can't be angry. You can't express yourself through that way. And it's really don't, no, you shouldn't cry. No, don't show a lot of emotion in doing things. You always have to think things through. You always have to be very logical about how you do things. And that's that conditioning that I find that most men have endured, and taken a part of them away, and kind of disempowered them in that respect.
Yes.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that inability, or not the inability to be able to do it, but to be dictated to, because it was a diktat,
Yes.
But I also heard big girls don't cry, sort of, and it was, same thing, to take away that release, that ability to be able to get that out of your system safely. I think of tears as washing the windows of your soul, so cleansing your eyes so that you can see more clearly.
Yes, and not suppressing emotion. I've worked with so many people that have pressure cookered, suppressed it, and it's come out as a dis-ease, a disease. And it needs to be released. And then one lady explained it, that she came, I suppose, like the movie Scrooge, with the chains around her. And then once the work had been completed, she felt free of those chains. And I think it's very important to express what's coming from here.
Yeah, 100%.
I was the best feeling stuffer you ever met. If a feeling came up, nope, don't want to deal with that. I'm going to push that down. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. The next one come out. And so there was a time when I was about 40 years old when the top popped off the pressure cooker. And so all these emotions were coming out. Now, things I had never wanted to deal with, they were all these things. And my wife at the time was really afraid for me, because not only did I not understand them, not only could I not deal with them, I didn't know what they were. I didn't know how to express them. And it was really a very tough time in my life, to be going through that, and just mind altering. I don't really know how I got through it. I think I just kind of walked around in kind of that daze. But what I did do is, you talked about the chains. I put armor on. And so the armor would get thicker and thicker and thicker. And I was wondering why I was tired all the time. I was carrying around all this armor. It was protecting me. and didn't understand why people couldn't get close to me. Well, the armor was so thick that nobody could get anywhere near me.
Mm.
And you couldn't get out.
And I couldn't get out. And I could not move fast enough. I could not shake it off. So in doing all the therapy, that's really the art. All these layers of this golden armor just kind of shed as these feelings were brought up and they dealt with and understood and all of it. And that was the part of the freedom that I was able to gift to me, was being able to move and not have to carry that around.
Mm.
Yeah.
Freedom.
Yes, and that's what self-empowerment is, isn't it? It's that freedom.
It's freedom. It's freedom.
It's feeling that weight lift off your shoulders, that light bulb moment. Suddenly, it was just like, it was a huge weight that I haven't got to keep pleasing people. It's just like, it was wonderful. It really was wonderful. Not that the people around me were too happy about it, but
no, they never are.
No, but so we're actually coming towards the end of our program. So we'll come to you first, Heather. Is there anything? Because I know we've gone off at tangents, but I think it's been important to that what we've shared has been what was needed to be shared. But is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would like to sort of add to the mix?
I think to say, for people watching this, how did they know if they're giving away their personal power? So I'd just like to touch on, if you give in to guilt trips, if you change your mind every time someone tugs at your heartstrings, you give others power over your behavior. And if you really don't want to do something, be strong enough to stick to your choices, even when someone tries to take you on a guilt trip. And the second thing that I would like to mention is, not everyone is always going to like you. And you don't have to let one person's opinion define who you are or how you feel about yourself. So that's what I'd like to add into the mix.
And as a people person, that is terrifying, by the way. That not everybody will like you.
Yeah, I mean, we're not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. And it's a bit like, I don't know, in America, we've got Marmite here, and we say you either love it or you don't. Yeah. I don't like Marmite. That's okay.
I wish I knew what that was.
Yeah. I think you've got veggie. Have you got Vegemite or something?
I honestly don't know what it is.
No. Okay. In America, it might be like Bovril or Vegemite or something. It's like a yeasty paste that people can put it with hot water and make a drink, or they spread it on toast, and you either like it or you don't. And I don't.
Well, apparently they don't like it much here because I've never heard of it.
Scott, anything you would like to add at the end of the conversation?
Just for those who are listening, these two wonderful, beautiful ladies have so much to add, and what they are saying is, understand and find yourself. If you find your heart, you will find your voice. When you find your voice, you find the power to be able to speak for yourself. This is how we communicate with the world. This is how we show the world who we are. Allow yourself that expression, however it comes out. At first, it might be anger. At first, it may not be pleasant, but you'll learn and you change it a little bit and you understand it a little bit. And when you can work and speak through compassion, no matter the situation, you're going to be amazed at how your life will change because of that.
Thank you, Scott. But I think everybody here has shared such wisdom from our own experiences. Think about your experiences of life. And think about why, from listening to these people, where have I given my power away? Have I got the courage to start taking it back? To start saying no when things don't feel the right thing for me? Have I got the courage to say, that is what I've learned about the UK Wolf Conservation Trust. At the time I sort of broke my marriage up, I would never have had the courage before. I actually became a member. Not only did I go for a walk with the wolves, I actually became a trainee handler with the wolves. I took my courage in my hands to do something I would like to do. I abseiled off the water tower in Poole. I took the courage in my hands to start experiencing life, because to that point, I hadn't really
Sorry. I'm live in an interview. I just want to add that I walked on fire, which I never would have done before, but I needed to prove to myself that I could do something that I was really scared about. Sorry, I've got my grandkids have arrived.
All right.
But thank you. Shh. Sorry, guys.
It's family. We are real people, and that's what it is.
We are real people, and I've got my grandkids in the space.
Heather's website is therootmaster.com. If you're watching the video on YouTube, I'll make sure it's under there for you. Heather, thank you so very
much, guys. Lovely to meet you, Scott. Thank you.
Take yourself out. We'll close down, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, bless. Thank you, Scott. It was lovely to have you join us.
It was lovely to be joined. I fully enjoy each and every one of these conversations. Thank you.
No, and I love doing these. Next week, folks, we've got a sound energy experience for you. So myself, David Tyrrell, Joanna Bracken, and Joanne Bracken and Patricia Kerrins. And then today's conversation is actually going to be the 14th of February.
Yes, it is.
Yes. How have I got that in? Oh, that's fine. That's something else. I'm scrolling through and I'm thinking, what's that? And that's going to be with Diana Leader. And we've been talking today about finding your voice. And I know Diana's very much about sort of finding voice. So are you hiding from your own voice? So actually, that's going to be a great follow on, I think, from what we've been talking about here today. So I hope you'll think about joining us for other programs, folks. The whole thing is we're here to share and to support. And do feel free, under the video on YouTube, you'll find websites for all of us. Sort of, if you feel the urge rather than the need or the want to contact somebody, because we all appreciate, we've all received support. We're now here to support because of the experiences we've had. So take care, be safe, stay well, folks. Thank you, Scott. Thank you to Heather. With her granddaughter was in the room the whole time. Every now and again, I was aware of a hand moving or something, bless her. But she was really good at 12 years old to stay quiet that long. Take care, folks. See you soon. Bye, Scott. Bye.